Hello, Tom Barnett here again with another story behind the illustration. This one focusing on a theme that I've pushed in my writings for close to 3 decades. This notion that demand outranks supply in a globalized economy, that it's a more powerful force and a more empowering force. Now that turns some age-old logic on its head, that long-time notion that having something is more powerful than wanting something. But that's how things work in a global economy, where supply can come from just about anywhere, but where demand only exists where there is sufficient income leading to discretionary spending. So supply is global, whereas demand is local. Thus the challenge here, how to capture that notion that, say, what China consumes is actually more important than what China produces. This is a cartoon that I found many years ago, one that speaks to the rising inequality of income and consumption inside China. When I first saw it, it really spoke to me. The big guy there, his demand is huge, equal to that of a small mob. So you get this sense, whatever the big guy wants, the rest are going to have to get used to consuming as well because he sets the market. And yes, that whole straw image likewise recalls the famous bit from the movie There Will Be Blood, in which Daniel Day-Lewis's oil drilling character brags about being able to siphon off crude reserves from under someone else's land. So that was my essential instinct going into this one. I wanted an image of somebody huge gobbling up an inordinate share of the supply of something. Because that's really the amazing part of China's rise. Its displacement of America as the consumption hub in the global economy. That shift is key because it means that the world economy increasingly revolves around China's tastes and desires more than America's, which had ruled global taste and desires for a good half century or more until China showed up. That sense of ruling over global demand was something Sarah Nuttall sought to capture in one of her early conceptuals, that King of the Hill image. There are downsides to this power, of course, a specific one in the text being China's habit of triggering epidemics through zoonosis, the spread of disease from animals to humans, thanks to some of their dietary habits. I kind of liked this second Sarah conceptual for suggesting that old bit about when America sneezes, the world catches a cold. That's actually a late 19th century saying that admits, from the perspective of Europe, America's driving role in the global economy of that age. If our demand slackened, then the global economy slowed. Now, as I point out in the book, we speak of China in similar ways, the power of its consumption. Sarah also developed a nifty yin-yang bit on a smaller concept in this thread, the notion that the Chinese Communist Party bases a great deal of its legitimacy to rule on its ability to consistently increase that nation's standard of living and thus consumption. A neat conceptual drawing, but too small of a point to carry the entire thread. Again, I was still drawn to the image of demand as this huge thing relative to all the actors that might struggle to meet it. Being a Monty Python fan myself, I was drawn to the gluttony image of that infamous restaurant scene from the group's last movie entitled The Meaning of Life. This huge, outsized, comical character indicating kind of an overconsumption and the power of being able to make all that demand happen. And really, without any prompting from me, that's what Jim Nuttall came up with on his own in his first cut illustration. This huge figure gobbling up so much relative to everybody else, and thus demonstrating by lifting that huge bowl the power of their demand. I really loved this image to include the baby-like manner of this guy's want, right down to his nakedness. This fellow just wants as much as he can swallow. The rest of the consuming public be damned. And so that is the image we ended up with, this childlike monster of consumption. Decades ago, that was America, and to a certain extent it still is, as we consume way beyond our global weight, simply because we're that wealthy and want that much. But today, that gluttonous monster is also China, with its profound capacity to shape markets around the world solely on the basis of its consumer preferences, the power of wanting trumping the power of having. And that's the story behind this illustration. As always, we love it when people buy the book, when they recommend the book, when they praise the book online. I and my Throughline colleagues, we feel very passionate about this work. Please consider subscribing to my Substack newsletter. And see you next time, next illustration.